What you are looking at is the face of a slave trader, an Arab slave trader. When black people think about slavery, the Arab slave trade, you'll hear some of them online saying the Arabs, the motherfuckers enslaved us. Well, first of all, not every American black person is a descendant of a slave that was enslaved by Arabs. Also, again, when people think of the Arab slave trade or a slave owner, they usually are thinking of people that look like this. Now, these people are mixed race people. This is who they think of, the sheikhs and all of them. This is who they think enslaved them, people that look like that, when in fact, it is people that look like this. Being Arab, now I know my video about the men I thought were attractive, I said the other races and I included Arab, but technically being Arab it's not really a race, it's an ethnic group. You can look any kind of way and be Arab. In fact, the original Arabs are black. They are black people that mixed with Turks. And a lot of their descendants, a large percentage, are biracial. That's all it is, ancient biracials. But in fact, 70 to 80% of Arabs reside in Africa. In Africa. So when you hear they talk about Arabs enslaving Africans and people get so emotional and they keep thinking it's them Arabs that look like sheikhs. No, it's people that look like they can be your damn daddy or grandfather or maybe even some of you. You know, the only difference between some Arabs and black people is that one is speaking Arabic and the other is speaking a different language. Yes, in Africa, you can see a difference between the features. You have some of them who have more stereotypically Negroid features, and Arabs have different features. They all have dark skin. Black people do not all look the same. Also, before I get into this man, you have some Hebrew Israelites who will talk about the Arabs come from Ishmael, and they make it sound like these people are a different total race. But they believe you are what your father is. Ishmael's mother was Hagar, but his father, I cannot remember the name of the father. I haven't read my Bible in a while. I would have had said Judah, but it's not Judah. Is it Abraham? I'm not 100% sure, but it's a black man. And if you are what your father is, and Ishmael's father was black, and he's the father of the Arabs, then technically that would mean Arabs are black people because they descend from a black man. But you know, a lot of them are not going to agree with what I just said. But yes, what you're looking at is a face of a black man who speaks Arabic and descended from some Arab people, but he's still black, who was a slave trader. In 1874, an English explorer wrote, "Africa is bleeding out of her lifeblood at every pore." There was a lot of shit going down in Africa. While your ancestors were enslaved here in the Americas and Latin America and the Caribbean, there was shit going on with black men in Africa. Some people wonder, well, why come they never tried to get us during slavery? Why come this ain't happening? Because it was a lot of shit going down in Africa. You know, and no one wants to imagine that the person doing it is black. So, what is this man's name again? The man you're looking at, his name is Tippu Tip. Now, I could have sworn Brooklyn Blue, aka Kendall St. Charles, I could have sworn she brung up this man's name before. I'm not 100% sure. But his name is Tippu Tip. And his real name is, now I might not say this right, is Muhammad bin Muhammad bin Jumbin Rajib El Marajibi. He was an Arab slave trader. Again. And he enslaved many black people. And a lot of black people, like I said, they just can't imagine that that the so-called Arab enslaving the people looks like him. So Tippu Tip got his name because of the sounds of his guns, but his name also means the gatherer of wealth. He ended up being a very wealthy man. Now, he was born in Zanzibar, and Zanzibar is kind of off the coast of Tanzania, Africa. And he was a slave trader in Central Africa, the Congo area, in Eastern Congo, and East Africa. He was born in 1832. His mother was a Muscat Arab of the ruling class. Now let's look at let me see what I can find. What do some of these Muscat Arabs look like? Well, let's look. His father and grandfather were also Arab traders from the Swahili coast. Now, the Swahili people, they will either identify as African or Asian, but let's look at what do Swahili people look like. His great grandma was a respected member of the Muscat Oman family, the Omanis. Let's look at what do these Omani Arabs look like? Well, let's look at some of them. Wow, don't some of them look like maybe they can fit right in the Caribbean and Black America? He also has Bantu lineage. Bantus are black people. In fact, I remember reading something where East Africans, like Ethiopians and stuff, they might refer to somebody as a Bantu, meaning the black person. It can sometimes be derogatory. But yes, Bantus are black. So he came from well-to-do people in that region. Now, at a young age, he got involved in the ivory slave trade. He led a group of about 100 men into Central Africa seeking slaves in ivory. From the money he earned from his trading, he used it to set up 7 plantations, and he acquired 10,000 slaves. He became very wealthy buying and capturing slaves. When Tip and his men would go to capture slaves, they would destroy their villages and rape up the black women. Rape them up. If they wouldn't give them the tusk, because the ivory comes from the tusk, and not give them any people to be slaves, he would tell them, you have to give us this in exchange of your life. So while y'all were over in America being all abused, this is what some of the stuff that was going down in Africa. Black men, and I could say biracial men speaking Arab, and maybe you can throw in maybe a little bit of some white Arabs in there, but a lot of them were from the Zanzibar region, and that's off the coast of Tanzania. So I highly doubt most of them were white, but yeah, they were over there raping up black women, Congolese women, and other black women from different areas. In fact, Tippu Tip was friends with some Europeans and formed an allegiance with them that even some of his Arab comrades had a problem with. Tippu Tip was also working for the Sultan of Zanzibar. The Sultan of Zanzibar wanted him to influence the people of the Congo with, the Arab influence. And speaking of white male friends, he also helped white men explorers of Africa. And one of the most famous, I believe he's either Scottish or British, his name was David Livingstone. He was a white man that disliked slavery. In fact, he saw something so horrible that happened to black women that they had to it caused them to end slavery in that area. Now, Livingstone, if you ever heard of Victoria Falls in Africa, that famous fall, he was the one that named it. Now, Tippu Tip and Livingstone were working together. He helped him out. He gave him supplies. So, let's go back to black women. It was a massacre, primarily of black women, that took place that horrified Livingstone. The massacre of the Mangwa women of Nyangwe. I know I said that wrong. Now, this was in 1871. 400 to 500 black women were killed in a single day by the Arab men of Zanzibar. Now, Tippu Tip was from Zanzibar. These were men that worked with him. Okay. Now, it was 1,500 people that gathered in this Congolese market village, this place called Nengwe. Most of them there were women. The Arab men, something took place a day before, and the Arab men came there and started up some shit. They were shooting all over the place, and they were killing up black women. The black women that didn't get killed were captured and used as slaves. During the Arabic slave trade, black women were used as sex slaves. Okay, when this event happened and close to 500 black Congolese women, black women got killed, it caused the British white men to step in and end slavery there. I repeat, let that sink in of what I just said. It caused white men to step in after all these women, black women, got murdered, for them to end slavery in that particular area where it was going on. So, as we can see, slave owners don't always come in a white face. A devil is not always white. British white men ended slavery after the massacre of black women. Now, this might be painful for some black people to talk about or accept or see, but I believe this is going to help all of us. We're going to get to the truth about a lot of stuff. This is just episode 1. I was going to just talk about slavery in Western Africa and Central Africa, where they claim black people in America, some of their descendants come from. But I want to talk about slavery throughout the whole continent of Africa. This evil, disgusting, sinful thing that is the root cause problem for everything. One of them, it's the root of the problem. And we're going to talk about that. I'm going to talk about that. And as far as I'm concerned, Tippu Tip can rot in hell. He can rot in hell. Tippu Tip was never brought to justice for what he did to black men, women, and children. He died a very wealthy man. In fact, he became the governor of an area in the Congo. He became a governor. And an Arab-Congo war broke out after a black African woman, a slave woman, was beaten and attacked. And something happened and a war broke out. And if you want to know where I got all my sources and you want to read about this yourself, look in the description box. Everything is there. And Tippu Tip died, I believe, in 1905. He died of malaria. And his legacy, I mean, he's infamous. He's famous, a famous slave trader that most of us here have never heard of. You know, it's just very shocking to read about all of this. And, you know, when I saw his face, it's even more shocking. You know, this is clearly a black man who was enslaving and raping up black women and was a part of the historic Arab slave trade. And I'm definitely going to be talking about that in a future episode as well. And like I said earlier, you know, you have some black people that they'll bring up the white man in slavery and those Arabs enslaved us, even though they're not even descendants of Arab black people that was enslaved by Arabs, but they're saying this. But they paint the picture again of the more European looking Arab or the more mixed looking Arab. They don't ever show you the picture, hey, of the black man Arab that is killing up people, black people, and enslaving them. So this is why I think this video is so important for you all to see. And I just want to hear your comments below. What do you think about Tippu Tip and what he did? And have you ever heard of him before you saw this video? And, you know, what are your thoughts about the massacre of 500 black women? And it's just terrible, absolutely terrible. And that's all I have for right now. I will be bringing more in the near future of things I find out. Peace, everybody.